Alright, so we got our prime rib, or the rib roast here. This one is right about 19 pounds or so. Now, the first thing that I'm doing here is getting the ribeye cap. So the ribeye cap is like the best part of the whole cow, in my opinion. And so one of the things you have to do is you just kind of have to eyeball it. So the cap is the piece of this ribeye. It's not really clearly defined on this particular piece. Different ones are going to be more pronounced or thicker, thinner, but you can always kind of get to it. You can see where the fat is right here, and you just start to separate it. So when I first got it, everything was kind of tight, you know, up here, everything was attached. Sometimes you'll actually be able to just with your finger kind of pull that piece back. But then as you start to pull it back, you'll realize that there is this really pretty substantial layer of kind of sinewy fat here that doesn't really render at all. So as great as this piece is, it's kind of a pain. And probably the reason why it's so expensive when you buy it all by itself is because of all the work that you have to do to get all this stuff off. So the kind of the key is to just work your way around all of that and then just get to a point where everything just sort of falls off. So you just, the other key is having a really, really sharp knife where you can just kind of peck away at it. And you want to lean on the side of getting more so that you don't cut anything off of it. You want to get more fat on this side because you can just kind of get all that stuff out of there. What we're going to do on this side is you can just leave like the whole ribeye here, or you can kind of go get really big slices, and then you can kind of do two pieces, and they call those ribeye fillets. So you can see, I don't know if you can see it down here in this, but right here, when you buy these whole rib roast, this ends up being just, there's a lot of fat down here. And so you basically can make one giant ribeye here, or you can kind of carve it out in two, and you can make two kind of fillets, ribeye fillets. So anyway, the thing here is just to kind of keep looking for the fat, stay up against the meat on this side, and you just kind of chisel away at it. And then eventually you'll see right here, I mean, you just run out of space. You know, this is just fat right here. It's a little different on this side, so you can see from side to side. There's a little bit, the piece that's a little bit more substantial over on this end. And eventually you just kind of run out of real estate here. And you can just see where all this fat is right here. And then you can just get rid of it. So now we're done. Now we're separated. So here is the famous ribeye cap. And you can tell here that you have a ton of work to do. These, you know, you want to get all this stuff off. And then on this other side here, same thing. You want to get all this stuff off. You don't want to cook. This is, you can see here, this is not fat that renders at all. So there's a lot of work to it, and that's why if you go into Costco or someplace like that and you buy just the ribeye cap that's already been taken care of, that's already been cleaned up, that's the reason probably why it's a little bit more expensive. But you essentially want the whole top to look like this little piece right here, and then you can just grill this. You know, you just cook it. What's interesting about these is that it'll actually plump up. So once you get it all carved up and you put it on the grill, it'll actually plump up a little bit. And then of course, it's very important when you eat this, you want to cut it. The grain on this is it's very clear that the grain goes this way. So if you cut pieces up like this, when you actually serve it, you want to slice the meat this way against the grain, like you were cutting fajita steak or something like that, skirt steak or something. So that's that piece, and I'll clean all this up and we'll turn the camera back on. But this takes some time. The other thing that's really important when you're doing this is to have this really cold. I actually bring them back, and at Costco they're really never frozen, completely frozen. They're usually pretty cold, but I'll put it in my deep freeze for about 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and I'll get it really cold, because it's just easier to cut this stuff off. You can actually kind of hand peel some of this stuff away. You can see that I'm doing here, but if you get a really sharp knife, then you can take care of business there. So again, you have the option to some of these smaller pieces to just make like a ribeye fillet on the smaller end of it, and then on the larger end of it, you can just make 1.5 inch or so, 2-inch cuts, however big you want to make the steak, and then you can do something real similar here. You can leave it just like it is, like a ribeye steak, or you can kind of carve it up. And so I usually do kind of a little bit of a combination of both of those, because you have the liberty to do that when you get a big giant piece of meat like this. Anyway, I'll work on that, and then get back to kind of some of the finished product here, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so I'm done trimming this piece, and you can see, so this is the kind of the bone side, and this is the other side, and you can see how clean I've gotten that. So I'll bring this over here. There is a lot of, you can see this is the pile of fat. So you can see why this stuff is like $10 a pound, because that's a couple pounds of fat. But you can see when you buy these, this is good fat right here. This is, you want some of this. It's a ribeye. You want to keep some of that fat in there. You don't want to carve all this stuff off. But there is this layer of fat that almost just peels itself off. And it's just like, this is a really good example right here. It's just really, like you get this on a brisket and stuff too. It's just real, it's just gross. So you just want to get as much of that stuff off as you can, and you want to get this nice and clean. And then the same thing on the top here. You're not going to be able to get everything out of here, but you want to try to get, sometimes these rib splines right here, they're real fatty, but I actually was kind of digging through some of the ones on here. They're actually not too bad. All right, so here's your final product. So out of that 21 pounds or so, we ended up with, I think 12 or 13, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pretty good sized steaks. And then you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 really good size ribeye caps right there. So each one of these ends up looking like this. And you'd be surprised for like this piece right here how much that plumps up when you actually cook it. It looks real thin, but it actually